Thank you everyone for tuning into today's session, Youth Climate Warriors, Stories from Around the World. Now, I'm Lina Gomez, Vice President of Youth Initiatives at National Geographic Society, and I'm fortunate enough to be moderating this amazing panel. Now, we know that our world is facing unprecedented challenges, and more than ever before, really, young people are shaping global conversations, contributing meaningful solutions. They're helping drive progress and change, shaping solutions in their own communities and beyond. At National Geographic, we firmly believe that young people are key to addressing some of the world's most pressing problems and are co-developing a new community around Gen Geo to support, connect, and elevate their work. So very pleased to be joining today. So for the next 45 minutes, we are going to hear from 8 amazing young leaders that really bring this solution-seeking mentality to life. And I'd love to just quickly get to know them. So if you guys wouldn't mind, let's do a quick round. Just introduce yourself and where you're coming from. And maybe let's start with Mark.
Sure. So my name is Mark McVeigh. I'm from Brisbane in Australia. And my background is that I took my retirement fund to court in 2017. And over the past couple of years, I've been working to fight to get them to realize climate change impact on their investments and to make a proper climate change policy. And of November 2020, I won and I've accomplished it, and I'm running a strong campaign to push other banks, retirement funds, superannuations, and insurance to do the same.
Thanks, Mark. I'm going to go on the way I see you on the screen. So, Hailey, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Hi, I am Hailey Campbell, and I am calling from the United States today. And my background is as a student in sustainability at Arizona State University, as well as the leader of a program at a nonprofit called Care About Climate that seeks to empower and unite youth for global climate action.
Kherann, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Thank you, Lina. Hi, everyone. My name is Kherann Yao. I'm calling from Ivory Coast in the western part of Africa. I'm the founder of Green Ivory, an organization that works for environment protection in my country, and we are more focused on environmental education for children and young people, and especially on the topic of climate change. Thank you, and I'm very happy to be part of this great panel.
Amazing. Haana, how about you?
Hey, good morning. My name is Haana Edenshaw. I'm calling in from Victoria, Canada. I'm from the Haida Nation, and I am one of 15 Canadian youth suing our federal government for the ways in which climate change is impacting our rights under the Canadian Charter. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Iqbal, how about you?
Thank you. So I'm Iqbal. I'm from Islamabad, Pakistan. I'm the founder of Fridays for Future Pakistan chapter. Currently, we're working from the last 5 years to spread awareness about climate change, and our aim is to actually make climate change a common discourse among the youth and the population of Pakistan. Thank you.
Lourdes?
Hi everyone, I'm Lourdes. I'm from Argentina. Well, I'm from Fridays for Future. I've been in Fridays for Future for 2 years now. I'm also part of Fridays for Future United States because I'm moving there, and well, I guess that's it.
Exciting, a move in the middle of COVID. Mary Claire?
Hello, welcome from my side. My name is Mary Claire from Switzerland, and I'm as well involved in the climate movements. Can be like the climate strikes, but also with a network with the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, so the place where all the governments are coming together to discuss about the climate policies. And there I am the so-called global focal point for the youth network, so basically bringing young people together to be able to engage with the UN process on climate.
Great. Well, as you can see, really, really impressive group today. Let's get started with the first question. And I'd actually love to hear from Mary Claire, Mark, and Hailey. But let's start with you, Mary Claire. So you are a youth advocate, a change maker, and a public speaker. But how did you first get started with change making? And what was that moment that opened your eyes to this problem that you want to solve?
Excellent question, Lina. And I think this is really important to ask like itself what is driving me, right? Because it's a very tough journey and it's not like as rewarding as many other things in life. So it's good to have this purpose. And for me, it was really seeing the changes in nature. Especially in Switzerland, we have like Alpine region. So we see the changes of climate and the effect of the climate crisis like really visualize. So like you can basically see there and you see how the glaciers are melting. You see how there is like less snow in winter. And of course, then this is a change in nature, which can be very sad and frustrating. But then also we see that this actually can be very existential. In summer, we have too little water. Of course, at the moment, we can still afford to do certain adaptation measures. But very soon this won't be possible anymore. And being exposed to these changes and this drastic this drastic changing reality made me very frustrated in the first place. And it took me very, very long to realize that I can actually do something. And this was the point when I started to kind of treat my own anxieties and fear of what is happening with activism and advocacy and change making, as you mentioned. And I'm very happy that I can now be active and be a part of the change and only be frustrated by what is going on.
Yeah, I love that. Mark, so I know that 2018 was a big year for you when you really started taking action against the pension fund to really take climate change seriously. Did your change making start before then? And what was it that sparked it? Was it realizing visually that things were changing, or what was it that began your journey?
Yeah, so when I first started the whole process, I was still at university studying biology, and we learned a lot about climate change. And I felt like I had to do something, but I didn't really know what. And so basically, I was just searching around on the internet. But I think what I was looking for was a way to do it that would actually have an impact on somewhere that hadn't really had it before. And in Australia, that was on the financial industry. These banks, these insurance companies. The retirement funds, they're just so much money is sitting there and it's investing in these fossil fuels, and it's having this huge impact, and nothing had really been done. The government was doing nothing. And so when I talked to a few people, there was this idea of like legal action to get an outcome. So I guess I was thinking, how do I channel this desire to do something about climate change into a new venture that is going to have impact and just experiment with it. And 3 years later, that's where I ended up.
That's amazing. And I think, we'll talk a little bit about this, but I feel like there's a lot of young people who have that feeling of wanting to take action, but just not really knowing where the right spot is. So it's great that you found an industry that hadn't thought about this yet. Hailey, so you're a program director for Care About the Climate's Ambassador Program, and also helped design sustainability curriculum for your university, among many other things. When did your change-making journey begin, and what sparked it?
Yeah, thanks, Lina. So really, as a kid, I was always found to be picking up trash, and everybody would just make fun of me. And that's, so it kind of started with this desire to clean up my environment, and I would definitely scold others to do so as well. And imagine a 9-year-old on the street yelling at their parents to pick up the trash that's not even their own. So it kind of started out there, but then I was fortunate enough to learn about climate change in high school, which is really amazing because none of my other friends, even in the same city, were learning about climate change and the impacts and the need to do something about it. And through this, I was, much like Mark and Mary Claire mentioned, I was empowered to do something. I was like, what can I possibly do to help alleviate the impacts of climate change, but also make it better so that future generations and even our current one now that we have a place to live comfortably in the future. And so I was really, you know, driven by this fear of what's going to happen and what struggles we're going to have to face if we don't do anything now. And this led me to do a community project with a local school on creating a more local food system that is resilient to climate change, but also helps the low-income communities that have been disadvantaged over time gain access to healthier food that they often don't get access to. So this kind of led me to study sustainability in college, and here I am now. And I'll just note that I do come from a state where climate change is kind of like this voodoo word, like you don't really say it a lot. People will look at you funny. Everyone calls me a tree hugger. So it's really interesting to kind of come from a place that you don't talk about these types of things unless you're lucky enough to learn them in school like I did. And now I've been able to create changes in my community there, as well as through my efforts at the university and care about climate. So it's really great to be here and to be with all these amazing people here today who are driving change in their own communities.
I love that story of you getting mad at your parents and asking them to pick up trash. So, you know, for my second question, I'd love to hear from Kherann, Lourdes, and Iqbal. And actually, I think this is a good, Kherann, why don't you kick us off? Because I thought it was really interesting that Hailey mentioned, you know, having access to climate change curriculum. And I know that that's pretty core to your programs. But you know, I know that your organization, Green Ivory, grew from what was originally a Facebook group to now an entire organization. We know that young people have 1,000,001 inputs every day. How do you get them to care about climate change?
Oh, good question. Thank you. So as far as my experience with young people regarding the cause of climate change, I try to adopt a very simplified and young-friendly approach. It consists in, on the one hand, of developing proximity with young people and creating a framework for exchange. On the issue of climate change, and on the other hand, and of creating a dynamic by exploiting the power of social network. In practice, I meet young people in high schools and college to lead discussion on climate change. In my approach to the subject, I use storytelling, and I talk to them about why I'm very sensitive to this issue, and that I've decided and why I've decided to get involved. And I talk to them also about the consequences and the issues at stake for our generation and the generation which are coming. And I try to give them some small ideas on how they can take action, for example, by making advocacy in their schools.
Oh, Kherann, I think you muted yourself.
Okay. So I was saying that I'm trying to give them some advices, and by telling them that they can change their way of consuming, and by doing some advocacy, so they can do some advocacy in their school and to demand change and to recommend more environmentally friendly practices. And on the other hand, with regard to creating a momentum on the issue of climate change, at the beginning of my involvement, I had set up a Facebook group with more than 2,000 people, and especially young people, through which I raise awareness and share environmental news. I had created small online challenges that were very much appreciated by young people, and I organize often online debates. Currently, as I'm piloting my Green School project with the support of UNICEF in my country, I share stories about how we are making an impact. in the communities, and this inspire many young people. This inspire many young people that you usually send me some message in which they tell me that they are very inspired by the work we are doing on the fields in the communities concerning climate change, and they really want to engage themselves, to commit, and to do something to participate as a contribution against climate action, against climate change. Yeah.
Yeah, Kherann, I love so many parts of what you just described, including just the small ideas and like the mini challenges where people can start, either on their own behaviors or in their schools. And I think that it's those ideas that kept people spark them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Lourdes, so you're involved with Fridays for the Future in Argentina, and as you mentioned, moving to the United States. So this is a crowded space for youth. What are some ways that you get them to pay attention and care about climate change?
Well, what I see a lot on social media is that people is always talking about the problem, but not the solution. So it's like, I feel like that only makes people fear and scared, and they just like panic and they don't know what to do. It's actually pretty easy to just look it up what I can do to help climate change, but some people don't do that and don't have that initiation. How you say, like that wanting to change. Not so many people have that thing, or to question themselves, like, what am I doing this? What is this wrong? Why can't I like do some stuff? Why is this affecting so much my planet? I feel like this is a problem that is affecting everyone, not just some kind of people. Yes, I feel there are some people that is more affected than others, but it's important that we understand in this solidarity that we only have one planet and we should work on it all together. So like that thing of working together and knowing and like telling them that they know that they are not the only ones alone in this planet and that we are all together in this, it's what inspires them. I also do stuff like Kherann, like I go to schools, I give them small ideas, I give them projects, I give them a lot of things so they can just work on it and stuff, because I feel like if you inspire young people, that is the future generation, is where we actually make the change. Because when I was little, nobody told me, hey, there's only like 15 years left for the planet, like, or you start working now or you die in 15 years. No. So I feel like the more you inspire, the more you share your thoughts, the more you're an activist. And not only being an activist, but when you share, it's like when you're actually a real activist, because like just having the information for yourself is not really spreading any kind of help to anybody. So I feel like in that way, when you help and tell everybody what's going on and how they can help, is the best way to do it for young people, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, you've made such a great point about making people feel connected to their community, and that it isn't an individual decision, or but that we need everyone. This is a shared planet. Iqbal, you are a former water researcher from Pakistan and founder of Fridays for the Future in Pakistan. What has been successful for you in terms of getting young people to pay attention to your issue? And is there anything that you heard from both Kherann and Lourdes that has worked well?
I think every region, every geographical area has, something different. And whatever my colleagues just shared, I think they've been doing a really great job in their particular area. And of course, if we move one step, nothing is, useless, I think. So for me, I don't make people believe and realize that this is my issue. I make sure that they take it as their own issue, as a collective issue, so that when it's a global issue or it's a regional issue, people will think about it. Right now, we can say that showing sympathy. Now, this climate change, we can say they can show empathy, that we are in the same place, we are wearing same shoe, and we can feel that how everything is working around us. Now, living in an area which is quite different from north to south, people having different problems because of climate change. Uh, what I believe that if I want to make them make sure that they work on this issue, they care about it, and the best way to fight this issue is that we have to change our own behavior. So behavior change is an very important issue in regions like South Asia and especially Pakistan, because if I myself am fulfilling my responsibility and going each and every way to stop people from not hurting the environment and so on. But I don't think so I will be able to achieve it if I'm not able to make and change their mindset. So I think this issue is something which we need to work on. But how I do is we focus on more awareness, because we see the facts that Pakistan doesn't have that much literacy compared to the regions that are more active in climate strike and other things, research, academia. So first thing is to advocate for awareness, and we do it ourselves. We do it with some other organizations, but the main thing is to pressure the government, to pressure them to bring a curriculum that has uniformity for all regions, that should be in every languages, including English and other local languages, because majority of the people are living in the rural areas and they don't understand English. So if you make curriculum in English and and try to understand that English, it's impossible, and of course the behavior will be the same. So to make it a serious issue in front of the people who are going to get affected, we need to make sure that they can feel through reading, to reading the curriculum. And the best thing I think to get them is like, we have to arm ourselves with the facts. We need to smart small, even we are starting from wherever, and we don't have to go it alone. That's not the way. So we can do work together, and then to show them the success stories around the world, and you can show them that this place was hit by climate disasters and this is a success story, and then we can make them encouraged to take action in their own community, in their, even if they're in their own home, that will make a lot of positive vibe. So I think from my point of view, to make them believe it's an issue, we have to make sure that they take it as their own issue, so that we can make a positive change.
Yeah, that's I love your perspective, and I think it's definitely worth. I remember last time we chatted, just talking a little bit about what specifically you're facing in Pakistan, and where you're seeing the impacts of climate change firsthand, and how that changes things. It changes how we may have to act. So I would love to actually move on and hear from Haana, from Mary Claire, and really reflect on how maybe COVID may have changed this year. So starting with Haana. Haana, you are an environmental justice and Indigenous right activist for much of your life. And you say that your deep commitment to social and environmental justice is rooted in the ancestral knowledge about the importance of land stewardship. This year has been like none other. How have you had to shift as we've moved into the virtual world, and how has that impacted your work?
Thanks for the question, Lina. That's a really good one. I have found that the pandemic has really negatively affected my rural Indigenous community in many ways. However, due to the general understanding of the importance of elders within our culture, and the fear of being such a rural place, we've had a lot of commitment to the safety of our elders and our community. This time has been really trying on the social, mental, economic well-being of everyone in my community, and the effects of climate change that are already being felt are really exacerbated by climate change. For example, economically, this year was very, very difficult for a lot of people, and traditionally my people really depend on for food security our our waters, our fishing, and things like that. And that's really been impacted by climate change, which is definitely a big impact. Has really changed kind of the face of my activism, both Indigenous grassroots activism, and I'm one of 15 youth suing the federal Canadian government. Has really impacted my lawsuit as well. I found that activism as an Indigenous person has really changed a lot from like grassroots protests and peaceful demonstrations that are no longer possible, or have to be very carefully curated due to the pandemic, to a lot more of internet, like kind of accessible seminars such as this one. I found that in general, like this kind of boon of using online media platforms like Zoom has really been useful in rural activist connection and networking, as well as education. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity to spread my message where it may not have been heard before. However, the difficulties are also quite vast. I remember the Alberta Premier at the beginning of the pandemic said now was a perfect time to build pipelines because people couldn't protest them. So that's made things difficult. I'm really optimistic that after the pandemic, we'll be able to continue this sort of activism that allows people to connect across nations, across Canada, and really kind of create more powerful networks that way. As well, my lawsuit is based on the ways in which my life and my rights are impacted by climate change, and these have really been exacerbated by the pandemic. So hopefully they will help with our court case. Thank you so much again, Lina. My answer.
No, I'm so glad we got to hear that perspective. And again, it reminds me of Iqbal. I mean, there are certain places that again are being more impacted than others from climate change where you're seeing it. Mary Claire, I would also love to hear how you have adapted and how that's impacted your work. I know when we spoke last time, there were both positives and negatives.
Absolutely. And I mean, Haana, you already explained the challenges we are having to make our voice heard, because there are many people who should hear our voices and are very glad that they don't have to hear our voices now, at least so visible. And also, of course, the media, which was a huge amplifier of our voice. They are now only talking about the COVID statistics, which of course is very important. But just seeing what the media and also the governments are capable enough of running campaigns and inform like every single citizen, at least in Switzerland, I think you wouldn't find anyone who doesn't know about like the current development about the virus. And this is also quite a complex issue, right? It's also something we don't particularly see. We can't see viruses. I mean, that they are able to actually do this is quite stunning, because they have always seen like, yeah, we can't talk about climate and we cannot inform and run public campaign with it, but yeah, it works. So I think this is something we are for sure taking away from this crisis and say like, well, you just showed us in 2020 that actually you're capable of informing every single citizen in the country what is going on about complex issues, about issues they might not have been like educated before about it. But yeah, going more specifically about the activism you asked. So while working on the international level, I mean, we work throughout the year very often already online based. So this is not something new, but what I think is really changing now is that these institutions, for example, the United Nations, which is very often still a very exclusive space and very hard to enter, a lot of things are going on behind closed doors. Despite that, I mentioned that we as a youth network of the UN, we have some access, but we are not yet there where we should be, and we are also still not yet there where we should be, but it's like really opening. And I can see this, that there finally now are attempts of including more people and more voices especially. And I think there's also a huge benefit for the Global South, which is normally often excluded, and for marginalized communities. Of course, there's still the barrier of like the accessibility and the internet, which you of course as well have to tackle. But before, we could see that due to funding issues and also sometimes language issues, so some people from the area were preferred, and because the events were happening more often in the global north and the developed countries, many of these frontline voices and young people especially were marginalized and excluded. So I think there's a big step, or it's a big opportunity now to make this nice slogan of leave no one behind a reality, at least now in the conversations we are having. And I think we should build up on what we kind of gained now. I mean, of course, it's not like a nice way of gaining this right and this accessibility, but now we have it, so let's take it and make sure that we can keep this. And that, for example, also the upcoming World Climate Conference, they are planning now, of course, a physical component, but they're really focusing as well on a huge virtual component also. Like we from the Youth Network, we have our classical conference of youth, which is happening just prior, and we are also focusing now having the very first time having a huge possibility of virtual engagement. I think this really changed and also changed how we are approaching things, and hopefully can make it even more accessible. And I really hope that we can keep this going, because I think what would be the worst, that we are not using this crisis, which is horrible, with the benefits which are coming with it, and then try to sustain them as good as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, I actually think that's an interesting transition to thinking about kind of adults in the space. And I'm hoping that we have a lot of adult allies listening into this session. And so I would love to hear a little bit about what role adults can take in supporting youth-led movements and initiatives. And Haana, I'd actually love to come back to you, because I remembered how powerful your comments were about kind of the intergenerational support in your networks. So I'd love to hear, what can adults do to support youth-led movements?
Thank you so much, Lina. I think that the impact of adults within youth-led movements is really important and cannot, and has been throughout my whole life. I've really been motivated in my actions to kind of represent my community and to fight against climate change, because stewarding our land is what my people have been doing since time immemorial for over 14,000 years. We've been protecting the land of Haida Gwaii every single generation. Every single person who can, they dedicate their life to making sure that I'm able to experience and learn from the land in the way that I do. And I owe that to the next generation to do the same. I remember one time my grandfather took me to this ancient village site on the bottom part of my island, and told me the story of a protest from the 1980s in which they stood there and defended the land and were willing to go to jail. Many people did go to jail, willing to fight in order to protect that land for next generations. And so I could go and see 1,000-year-old trees. And the importance of, within the Haida culture, learning our language and learning from our land are very, very tied into having that ability to access the land. So I found, since I was really young, I've been standing on protest lines and just learning from the people around me how to organize movements. And I found that really, really inspiring, as well as kind of adults were the ones to kind of teach me about my rights and what I'm entitled to as a youth. I found that one of the most empowering and powerful lessons of my life is what I am given by the United Nations, by Canada, what I'm owed, my rights as a youth, and then being able to fight for those rights has really impacted my climate journey. And I found a lot of adults who are really willing to help empower me in this fight. And as an Indigenous woman from Canada, having my rights heard is a very rare thing, I feel for these groups.
No, I think that's really important. Lourdes, does that resonate with your experience, and any advice for adults who may want to be allies to youth movements?
Yes, well, it depends. There are so many opinions and comments about, adults getting involved, because first, maybe there are some that first say yeah, I want to help you, and then they just take the lead and they just do what they want with the movement, and it's not how it is. and there are some that actually help and like help us with like the fight, but do not take lead of the fight. And there's a difference in there because they're adults and they obviously have more experience than us, and they can help you in many ways. I'm not saying that, but there's a difference between like taking the lead and just helping, because this fight is ours. Like, I mean, yes, it's everyone fight, but like it's our generation that started the change. It's our generation that is the one suffering because the other didn't care. Like, it's our generation that is actually changing everything and trying to make a better future for everyone. So I feel like in that way, it's not their fight. And I have met people, I have friends that have like 80 years old and they are like still striking, and they help me and they give me a lot of advice. But the people that is an adult and want to join, like there's no problem. Like this fight is for everyone, and we need everyone actually, because as I said before, this planet is of everyone. It's not mine. It's not, you know. But just listen, like be open-minded and start listening, because South people is the one making the change. The South people actually knows a lot of stuff. Don't underestimate it because of their age. Like there are so many people that is really, really smart, intelligent, and they have been underestimated because of their age. And that age doesn't mean anything. I have met people that has like 17 years old and they are still, some words that I don't want to say right now, but they haven't grown up. So like, just please listen and try to make a change, and realize that not everything that goes in the news that says like it's eco-friendly is actually eco-friendly. And you know, inform yourself, because you're an adult and you're actually hearing just people. And maybe if you actually inform yourself and read articles and actually make a change on that, you could actually make a big impact. And yeah, I guess that would say, like, maybe I would say some more, but I just my mind.
No, I think that is great advice. And I've seen it, you know, I don't think that age necessarily translates into, you know, having the best expertise or, you know, the right leading. I think we've seen it. We've seen it with everyone on this call. So I have two more questions. I think that the next one is, we've kind of alluded to it in many people's comments, but I know I've heard many times from young people that they want to get involved, but finding solutions is hard. So how do they take the first step, and what might be some advice for them? And Mark, I'd love to hear from you, and then Kherann.
Yeah, so my advice is always to talk to people, find other people that are interested or passionate. Usually most places will have organizations that you can contact that need help, that were always looking for more passionate people to assist, and they can make really change not only in small communities, but when they work together as well, as big changes that can happen on, you know, state and national scales as well. So, and if there are no organizations in your community, start one. Get a bunch of friends together, or find some people who are also passionate about it and start a movement. I mean, there's people on this panel here that have started movements and have just grown and grown and grown. There's opportunities there, and it just takes one person to find a couple more people, and just the ball starts rolling. So my advice is always to, talk to people, network, find others, and get started.
Love that. Kherann.
Thank you. I think my answer goes to the same wavelength with Mark's. And this is a question that comes back to me a lot. And I really want to share my experience when I was beginning, so that the young people who are following us can learn from it. So at the beginning of my involvement, I was in the same situation. I was very sensitive to the ecological issues, and I felt the will to get involved by doing something with an impact, but I didn't know where to start really. So by recommendation, after talking with some elders, I started to attend environmental conferences, and from there I started to develop my network. I meet there's people to discuss our common causes, and it allowed me to learn more about the climate issues. And I've done a lot of research, which I continue to do, and because I think that if you want to be taken seriously in the cause that or in your purpose, and that people can support you, you have to go far. You have to go very deeply in your subject. And once you have enough knowledge and information about your issue, and once you are able to speak comfortably about your topic, I think the next step would be to build your team. And to do so, you will need to meet other young people. You should who are very dynamic in your area, in your community, and you have to try to convince them to be part of your team. And from the moment, I think once you try to convince the other young people to get involved with you and to be in your team, I think that you can start to take action really, because with a real team, I think that things are more easy, because yourself you can go very far, but when you are more, when you are numerous, you can share ideas, you can have new ideas and very good ideas, so that you can develop great project. And I think this is my example when I was in my involvement journey, in my commitment journey, because I built my team, and from that we try to reflect about which project we could develop to make an impact in the community, so that we can involve more and more young people to be aware about climate action. And after that, we developed the Green School project, which today is a great project that we are leading with UNICEF in all the country. We are going in all the primary schools, and we are and the project is being implemented in all these high school, because in Ivory Coast, UNICEF is building some classroom with plastic recycled, and from that they want to give the idea of of the climate change issue to children, and through this project. So we are working with UNICEF in all the country, in all the cities of the country where the classrooms are built, so that we can work with children, with communities, with parents, to give this awareness and to set up this project. And currently, I'm on the field. I'm in a community in my country, and as you can see, let me show you. I'm in a classroom made with plastic recycled, and over there you can see children there who are waiting for us to be taught about recycling, to be taught about climate action, to be taught about climate issues, and also parents. So I think that you have to do that. You have to build your team and start thinking how you can have a great impact on the communities, and how you can involve young people. Yeah.
Kherann, thank you so much for giving us a little tour. We definitely, I had heard some, wonderful background noise, and it was great. It was great to see where you are. And frankly, I think that this is a great transition to our final question, which is about hope. And Kherann,
Okay.
your story just has gives me so much hope, as well as all of your stories. But I'd actually love to hear from you guys. You're all leading movements that are making positive change. As we enter 2021, what gives you hope? And unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time to hear from everyone, but Iqbal and Hailey, I'd love to hear that from you. So let's get started with Iqbal.
So I think as we enter this year, we have a lot of knowledge taken from the last year, a lot of lessons. And I think while this COVID-19, was affecting and is affecting human directly, and its impact is tragically visible, climate change is affecting the ecological system within which the humans live and upon which their very survival depends. Perhaps COVID-19 will forever change our lifestyle, I guess, but so far there's not been able to do despite about climate change despite its seriousness. So we have seen that, how we reacted on COVID-19, and we have also seen how we should have reacted on climate change. So as I have earlier also shared that we can see the response of human nature about a crisis that came in and uh, sabotaged the social world of human, and we reacted and we worked on it, and then we came up with a vaccine to fight this crisis, right? We were with some already good ideas when this pandemic came in, and we were like social distancing is one way that we can try to avoid this infection instead, right? Now we already have the solutions of climate change, but we aren't working on them. So I think we acted, and we are also now on way to end this COVID-19 crisis with a vaccine. We worked on it. The world have seen it, how fast the scientific community was. Now we have to make sure that the vaccines that were discovered by the scientific community to tackle the climate crisis should be injected in the heads of the people that are not working. I think that's the main thing. So this year is full of hope and full of lessons because of the last year, and I think this the pandemic has significantly made us realize that things can be done. If there is a will, there is a way, and we have seen the will. Now we have to come out of this pandemic, and we have to act quickly, and we have to actually react like we in a crisis. And then I think this thing gives me hope that yes, I think that God gave us this COVID-19 to tell us a lot of things can be done, but you have to make sure that you are serious about it. We don't have to leave it on God. So yes, this movements will be a positive thing in the coming years ahead, but there will always be one thing: the COVID-19 was something which taught us a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's really true. If only we implemented our vaccines and social distancing and the masks in the climate crisis.
Exactly.
Hailey, I'd love to hear, what gives you hope as a final question.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just touch on two things. Iqbal really hit the nail on the head there with recognizing that COVID-19 has really proven to us how both economies and societies can quickly pivot to do something that is considered out of the norm to save our lives, right? And this is really mostly human driven. And if you think about the impacts of climate change, we are working hard so that humans can live in the future. And of course, we rely on our environment. And the way we talk about our environment is that, it provides us these services, but really, our environment does not need us. It will continue to thrive if humans were not here, and it might even thrive better without humans. So really, this is, and sustainability and climate action is really about humanity and ensuring that we can continue to thrive while also supporting the systems that support us. So I think that the hope is that, like Iqbal said, is we've learned a lot. We learned that communities can come together in a time of need. We learned that we can do things online that we've never thought about doing online before. And we've really figured out how to even mobilize and get our voices heard, even though it's more challenging than it usually is, as Mary Claire has mentioned. And lastly, I'll just say that it is also the people standing up and fighting for climate action, like the very people on this call, that give me hope as well. Even 3 or 4 years ago, this is not something I would have ever seen myself, being a part of. And I think that it's the community of people that come together, especially the youth, who are not in competition with each other, who are not trying to, prove something other than the fact that our climate change is happening and our lives are at stake, and we're all really unified in that effort. And I am really, really amazed by all the work that everyone's doing. So I think it's really the people that are coming together that give me a lot of hope.
What a fantastic way to end. Thank you, Iqbal and Hailey. This has been such a great, it's my morning. I know across this call, we're at night, we're at early morning, but I think that this is definitely, this type of conversation brings us closer and forms that community that we know is so important in this work. So nice to meet everyone, and I hope everyone has a good day.